In my past life, I entered the palace as a consort, while my twin sister married a young general. I poured my heart and soul into protecting our family and my sister's husband, burning out before 30. Yet my sister claimed my excessive worries hastened my demise. She, however, lived a life of happiness, blessed with numerous children and grandchildren. In this new life, my sister snatched the imperial decree granting me entry to the palace. She said, "Sister, this time, let me go." As the eldest daughter of the Marquis, I was born with the auspicious sign of a phoenix at 17. From childhood, I was trained to meet the standards of a palace consort, masters of music, chess, calligraphy, painting, court etiquette, and the intrigues of the harem. The crown prince, 20, was my childhood sweetheart, and the empress was my maternal aunt. All that remained was for the crown prince to ascend the throne, and everything would fall into place. Yet the emperor, at 50, indulges in debauchery and demands new consorts be selected for the palace. Any attempt to evade this decree will be punished as high treason, leading to the confiscation of property and the annihilation of the entire family. My mother, her eyes blurred with tears, held me and wept bitterly all night long. Yet she told me, "This is fate." Yes. As the eldest daughter of the Marquis of Linyang, I have borne the mission to uphold the family's prosperity since birth. The Marquisate of Linyang's hereditary privileges had long since faded, and the clan lacked capable heirs. Our sole hope, the empress of the present reign, had passed away over a decade ago. Only by producing another empress could the Marquisate endure and flourish. Even while still pregnant, Mother secretly sought the imperial astrologer's guidance. He declared this child would be of incalculable nobility, destined to reign supreme. Upon hearing this, the entire household rejoiced. Yet when the child was born, it was a twin birth, 2 lotus blossoms in one stem. I have a twin sister, Xin Qingran. Because I was born half a moment earlier, I must bear the destiny of the Marquisate. Xin Qingran, however, is a heavenly gift, a surprise. Our parents can shower her with unreserved affection, enjoying the simple bond of ordinary sibling love. As for me, I am the future empress. They told me, there is no affection in the imperial family. I lived each day under the watchful eyes of the matrons, rigidly adhering to protocol. As I grew older and began learning the scheming ways of the harem, those cold stares transformed into scrutiny and probing. Later still, after I mastered the art, they became evasive glances. No one wished to have their thoughts exposed. They said my gaze was like a blade, sharp enough to send shivers down one's spine. Locked in my chambers, I pored over ancient texts day after day, honing my gaze until it held only unfathomable depths, only the stillness of an ancient well. I must be like a temple Buddha, majestic and aloof. Beyond the tightly boarded windows, Xin Qingran's laughter echoed through the garden. Occasionally, my mother's gentle voice would call out, urging her to stop running wildly, lest she catch a chill in the spring air. Run? I imagined the scene. Nobles must walk with measured steps. But as a palace consort, one must also maintain graceful poise. I have never run, only sat, dignified and still, day after day, until I am buried deep within the palace walls. Until I die. Now, in this new life, I stared at the imperial edict before me, its bright yellow paper stirring my emotions. Father's face was stern. Perhaps sensing my hesitation, he snapped, "Ronger, for the sake of the entire Marquisate, you must go. Becoming empress is your destiny. Who you serve as empress matters not." Would the 50-year-old emperor truly need a 17-year-old empress? I had tried it in my previous life. It was impossible. I suppose my father, indeed the entire Marquisate, had long known this. In my past life, I was merely a sacrificial pawn to appease the emperor's will. You should have known long ago that the fate of the marquis's household rests solely upon your shoulders. But this burden is so heavy. Why must such a vast marquisate place this weight upon a single woman? I carried this burden through one lifetime, enduring until I was emaciated and wept until my heart ached. Now, must I endure another lifetime? I don't know why I've returned, only to find myself trapped in this predicament with no room for maneuver. Mother's eyes were bloodshot, her tear-filled gaze fixed on me. She tried to speak several times, but swallowed her words each time. My eyes, which had seen through countless hearts, could not discern whether her sorrow was for my youth, only 18, forced to serve a dying man 3 times my age, or whether it was for me, raised for years only to be wasted in the palace, unable to offer the slightest aid. Cold tears slid down my cheeks. I chuckled bitterly inside. I thought I'd grown numb to pain. I reached to take the imperial edict, but a pale hand snatched it first. Startled, I looked up to see Xinqingran's radiant face. She gazed at me, her smile bright. Sister, let me enjoy the fortune of being a noble lady instead. Nonsense. Father snatched the edict. Do you think that's some pleasant destination for you to play around in? Mother grew anxious too. Ranner, with your sister there, why would you need to go to the palace? Their tone was stern, yet both feared Xinqingran didn't realize she was plunging headlong into a den of dragons and tigers. Xinqingran clung to her father's hand, pouting sweetly. Being an empress is so majestic. Ranner wants to go too. Her usually stern father softened only when he saw Xinqingran. Now he coaxed her patiently. Being a general's wife is even more glorious. When the time comes, General Jing will take you to the frontier to ride horses. General Jing's blood-bought steed could gallop 1,000 miles in a single day. It's your betrothal gift. Ranner, haven't you wanted to ride for ages? Just 2 days prior, the general's residents had unexpectedly sought out their family, arranging a betrothal for Xinqingran, though it was merely an exchange of birth charts and betrothal letters, without the formal betrothal ceremony or official documents. Among such high-ranking families, it was effectively the same as being betrothed. Though His Majesty covets beauty, he would never force himself upon a betrothed woman. Yet for hastily betrothed girls like Xinqingran, several heads have rolled before. Both thunder and dew or the emperor's grace, how could he tolerate others testing his limits? Yet father and the others still took the risk. Even if they sent me instead, my sister wouldn't have to go. They guarded against every impossible contingency with ironclad care. But whether I'd suffer torment in the palace? That was entirely their concern. In my past life, I was utterly oblivious. Now, looking back, that favoritism chills me to the bone. Yet now, Xinqingran was throwing a tantrum for reasons unknown. One moment she complained about the barren frontier, refusing to endure hardship. The next, she protested that a general's wife must bow to the empress. She'd never lower herself before me. Father, worn down by her clinginess, could only exchange a meaningful glance with Mother. Mother stepped forward, pulling Xinqingran away from the imperial edict. Ranner, the palace has countless rules. You're always so unruly at home, how could we possibly send you there? If you anger a noble lady, it's a capital offense punishable by decapitation. Xinqingran giggled as she stood beside me. Don't underestimate me. Whatever you can do, I can do too. With that, she struck the same pose as me. She then performed the court bow before father and mother, executing every detail of the ritual with flawless precision. Her smile faded as she slowly circled around me, mirroring my calm expression. With the same face, the same figure, even I felt momentarily dazed. Were it not for the tear mole at the corner of Xinqingran's eye, I might have thought I was gazing at my own reflection. Mother's face darkened instantly. She pulled Xinqingran behind her, glaring at me. Qingrong, did you incite Ranner to take your place in the palace? I gave a bitter smile. Had they always feared my palace craft would be used against them? Before I could defend myself, they locked me in the ancestral hall. In the depths of winter, not even a soft cushion was provided. They demanded I reflect deeply on my duties as a Shin family daughter. Curled on the cold stone slab, I stared at the rows of ancestral tablets. They were black, solemn, the generations of Shin family patriarchs. All men. Not a single female Shin was among these densely packed tablets. Amid the flickering candle flames, I rose, grabbed the lamp oil, and splashed it onto the nearby curtain. If I can't bear the burden, then let's burn it all to ashes together. Sis. I turned to find Shin Qingran half stuck in the window. Her eyes widened at the candle flame in my hand, then narrowed into a smile. Quick. Quick! Pull me out. I felt a bit dazed. Shin Qingran was still just like when we were children. Back then, she always found playing alone boring and would find ways to sneak into my room to find me. That clumsy girl got stuck in the window like this many times. Later, whenever Shin Qingran came, father would punish me with the family law, and Shin Qingran stopped coming. But in my room, from time to time, storybooks and snacks would mysteriously appear in the corners. In my past life, I was willing to devote myself wholeheartedly to protecting the Marquis's mansion and the General's mansion, partly because of this thread of warmth. I possessed so little, yet this warmth became a thread, binding me tightly to that place. I pulled Shin Qingran out, and she landed on her bottom. She frowned, about to cry out in pain, but then seemed to remember something and covered her mouth. She stood up and handed me a bundle. It felt light, probably more food. How thoughtful of her to remember I hadn't eaten dinner. But when I opened the bundle, it was a set of light green robes, the style Shin Qingran usually wore. I frowned. Ran. What are you doing? Oh, don't give me that look, Shin Qingran said, tugging at the robes on my body. They're so old-fashioned. I held her back. Stop fooling around. Shin Qingran just smiled. Sis. Look at me. Smile with me. My frown deepened. Enough. If father finds out, he'll punish you too. Her smile remained unbroken as her hand brushed my brow. Don't frown. All wrinkled up. You look like a little old lady. My heart raced with desperation. I just wanted to slip away with this filthy Marquis's mansion in the dead of night. But now Shin Qingran was here, and my resolve softened. Fine. Hurry up and get out. Grab the silver notes and jewelry you've stashed under your bed. The Northwest Gatehouse is unguarded right now. Once you're out of the Marquis's estate, find General Zheng and head for the frontier. Run as far as you can. Cover your tracks. Wait 2 years until the old emperor passes away. Then resurface. Shin Qingran gently stroked my cheek. Sis. We really are on the same wavelength. What you said is exactly what I was thinking. What? Darkness flooded my vision. My body went limp. Shin Qingran's soft breath brushed my ear. Sis. Run away. Don't come back. When I opened my eyes again, winding mountain paths flashed past endlessly. The constant jolting made my stomach churn, while sand, dirt, and grass stalks whipped against my face. Glancing around, I realized I was bound, hanging upside down from a horse's back with a rag stuffed in my mouth. How wretched. Even in the cold palace of my past life, I'd never been this miserable. Struggling. I spat out the cloth and shouted, Jingye. Stop this at once. The young General Jing paid no heed, cracking his whip again. Dust swirled up, and I ended up with a mouthful of mud. What a heartless fool. In my past life, when Shin Qingran visited me in the palace and mentioned Jingye, she used only 2 phrases, clueless about romance and heartless and soulless. I always thought she was just showing off. Life in the palace was treacherous. I lived in constant fear, walking on eggshells, terrified that one misstep would cost me my head. But after she married Jingjingye, she had no mother-in-law above her, no sisters-in-law below. Stationed at the frontier garrison, she didn't even have to manage the household affairs of the general's mansion. Such a life couldn't have been more carefree. Now, dangling from the horse's back, jolted by every bump, I finally understood. Shin Qingran's complaints weren't mere girlish whims after all. It was genuinely stifling. I called out several more times, but Jingjingye gave no answer. Fighting the rising nausea, I hooked my foot around the stirrup and leapt up onto the horse's back. Fortunately, the martial arts instructor at home had taught me some basic moves. Only when Jingjingye saw me sit up did he grumble. "Sister, my apologies. Ran said you knew some martial arts, so I had you bound." These two lovebirds. I sighed inwardly. Pulling out the hidden dagger from my sleeve, I sliced through the ropes, pressing the blade against Jingjingye's throat. I demanded, "Take me back." Jingjingye seemed oblivious, urging the horse onward. My resolve hardened as I pressed the blade deeper, cutting through skin. I'm ruthless when I need to be. Don't think I'll show mercy. "Sister, you needn't threaten me. Ran said you're the most stubborn yet soft-hearted person. She told me that when she was young. No matter what trouble she caused, you always took the punishment for her. How could you ever harm me?" This girl, before she's even married, she's already laid everything bare with Jingjingye. I sheathed the dagger and pondered escape routes. "Sister, don't waste your effort. I've stationed my personal guards along the entire route. If you flee, no matter which path you take, my 800 guards will track you down." I sighed helplessly. "You've certainly made thorough arrangements for the one Ran would risk her life to protect. I dare not make the slightest mistake." I remained silent for a long time, my heart filled with bitter sorrow. Do you know that Shin Qingran's departure means she's throwing her life away?" The biting mountain wind swept across my face, making my voice dry and hoarse. "Yes, I know. Ran said she isn't as clever as you. In the palace, survival is difficult." I pressed my lips together. "You knew this, yet still followed her wishes? You too can go to the frontier and live freely. If I go in, I might survive." What does Shin Qingran know? Ah, what could she possibly know? You're sending her into that inferno. Do you have any idea how horribly she'll die? Jingjingye reached back and handed me a silk handkerchief. "Sister, please stop crying. Ran told me she's studied for many years and trained for many years. Truly many years," she said. "She began in her past life. She also asked me to tell you that though she's not as clever as you, at least," Jingjingye choked, "at least she can hold on until the old emperor passes away. So you can." I slammed my fist into Jingjingye's back. "So I can what? So I can go retrieve her corpse?" I leapt from my horse, blocking the path, and held a dagger to my throat. "Jingjingye, either take me back to rescue your fiancé, or carry my corpse back to report to Shin Qingran." Before entering the Marquis's mansion, I sent Jingjingye back, keeping a backup plan. Yet before leaving, Jingjingye seemed hesitant, as if he wanted to say something, thinking he worried for my safety. I softened my voice to reassure him. "I still have value to the Marquis's residence. With you controlling matters outside, they wouldn't dare harm me." Jingjingye shook his head. Ran said sister possesses extraordinary wisdom. Plotting schemes is surely no problem for you. But Jingye doesn't understand. Does becoming a noble lady in the palace require such immense effort? That punch from sister really hurt. I suppose Ran doesn't have that kind of strength. She'll have to endure some hardship in the palace. My smile froze on my face. As I turned to enter the mansion, Jingjingye's voice came from behind me. "Sister, even if it doesn't work out, it won't matter. Don't be so tense." Ran had long since made up her mind. She said there weren't that many necessities, neither for her nor for me. I gave no reply. Nor did I turn back, walking steadily toward the Marquisite's gates. I feared that if I looked back, my tears would spill uncontrollably. There are necessities. Shin Qing ran. You must come out of the palace alive. Shin Qing ran had indeed prepared thoroughly. A mole now graced the corner of my eye. Servants greeted me with smiles. Second young miss. Weren't you heading to the frontier with young General Zheng? Why have you returned? Shin Qing ran had always been kind to the servants. These smiles were unfamiliar to me. From childhood, the matron taught me, servants are servants. Slaves are slaves. A noble may bestow favors upon subordinates, may punish them, may feign kindness and tolerance to win their allegiance, but must never harbor the slightest affection. The servants have always seen me only as their master. But to Shin Qing ran, she was their own young mistress. I sighed, wondering how Shin Qing ran managed to live like this in the palace. I greeted them, pretending to be Shin Qing ran. Father and mother were already waiting for me. Mother drew me close affectionately. Ran. You've only been gone 2 days, why rush back already? Did you miss us terribly? Your lordship. I'll tell you this, keep Ran here 2 more years. She's still just a little girl. Father chuckled. Ah. She's a young woman now. Can you keep her forever? I dismissed the servants and closed the door. Stop the charade. Others can't tell the difference. But you two still can't? Mother sighed, released me, and sat down beside me. Ronger, is it really that unbearable? You've always longed for a life of freedom. Now that Ranner has taken your place in the palace, couldn't you just pretend to be Ranner for the rest of your life? No. I sneered coldly, you two can pretend to be deaf and dumb forever. But I can't. How could Shin Qing ran speak so highly of you both day after day? Are you prepared to abandon her in that hellhole? Never to look back? Even beasts don't devour their own young. After all these years of cherishing her, you simply cast her aside? Nonsense. Father glared at me. Such disrespect for elders. What noble lady behaves like you? She rejected the splendid future we arranged for her, insisting on leaping into the fire pit herself. One misstep could bring disaster upon our entire clan. I'll clean up her mess, consider it fulfilling all these years of father-daughter affection. As for you, you may not want to be Shin Qing ran, but you will be her. Mother stepped in to smooth things over. Ronger, you don't understand your father's predicament. His Majesty grows ever more capricious. Once your aunt departs, there will be no one left in the palace to advocate for the Marquis's household. You know well the Marquis's sons, none are capable of taking charge. Who else could inherit the mantle? By the time your cousin the Crown Prince ascends the throne, who knows what the world will look like? And then, with his own wife's clan established, how would a distant relative like the Marquis's household find its place? How could I not know? After entering the palace in my previous life, they used the same arguments to persuade me to plan for the Marquis's household. But these burdens should not fall upon Shin Qing ran. I will go and swap places with Shin Qing ran. I know there are people left behind by my aunt in the palace. I'll use the excuse of visiting her to enter the palace and simply swap clothes with Shin Qing ran. Shin Qing ran and I are identical in appearance. Even the servants in the mansion couldn't tell us apart with careful disguise. I paused, then laid out the bait. Besides, you've spent all these years cultivating me precisely to gain leverage in the imperial harem. Shin Qing ran can't do it. But I can. Not only can I, but I can also bring boundless honor and supreme power to the Marquisate. Nothing entices like desire. Even as a child, I understood Father's sole ambition, to revive the Marquisate. Everything else could be discarded. Father's expression flickered, ending in a cold snort. You mere child, how can you guarantee this? The die is cast. Stop wasting your breath. Mother sighed and pulled me aside. Ran. She has already gained favor. How could that be? I urged Xing Jingye to hurry back. And within 5 days, we were back. The old emperor summoned me to the palace only to restrain the crown prince, to nip his rebellious thoughts in the bud. Nearly all the girls entering the palace with me were 14 or 15, young and tender. For the alchemist had told the old emperor that only by sharing a bed with a fresh, delicate maiden could he prolong his life. Though I was granted the title of consort upon entering the palace, it wasn't until over 2 months later that I was summoned to the emperor's bedchamber. I frowned in thought for a moment, then squeezed my mother's hand. Find an old woman to take my virginity. It would be the same. What a disgrace! Father slammed the table. You're a virgin. How can you utter such filthy words? Now father deemed me filthy. Yet when he sought a palace matron to teach me those private matters, I was barely 7. It's merely breaking my virginity, far cleaner than those other methods. You. Father raised his hand to strike me. I seized his wrist. Father. I still need my reputation to enter the palace. He couldn't break free, his wrinkled face flushing crimson. Fine. 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 You wretched thing. Using everything you learned on your own family. I chuckled softly, flicking his hand away. But father, your heavy investment was well spent. Sending me in means all your scheming these years won't have been for nothing. Mother tenderly rubbed father's wrist, her tone tinged with reproach. Ronger. He's your father. When has he ever treated me like a daughter? To him, I'm merely a pawn for the palace, a puppet to glorify the marquisate. I'm merely following your arrangements to fulfill my duty. What wrong have I done? Mother sighed, her expression weary. But what about young General Zheng? Xing Jingye, what does he have to do with this? Once Shen Qingran emerges, we'll be together. What's so difficult about that? How could the general's residence accept a disgraced daughter-in-law? Especially one who's known the emperor's favor. Even if you cover your tracks perfectly, and only young General Zheng knows. Who's to say he won't care later? A man's heart is the most unpredictable thing. Once this rift forms, kinship may well turn to enmity. Mother's voice was soft, carrying that distinctive Jiangnan accent. Yet that tone, rich with the misty rain of Jiangnan's April, plunged me into an icy abyss. You. I trembled, nearly losing my voice. You planned this, to have me marry Xing Jingye as Shen Qingran, to win over the general's household? Mother nodded. As the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household, this is your fate. Qingran walked your path. Then you shall walk it well. This is best for everyone. Best? Best my ass. Do you really think everyone is like you, cold-hearted and emotionless? Treating people like mere objects to manipulate? It was Shen Qingran who grew up alongside Xing Jingye. Not me. We are human beings. Not cats or dogs to be casually paired together in a cage as if we were suitable matches. Don't even dare to dream of your little scheme succeeding. If you refuse to bring Shen Qingran back, I'll go straight to the imperial court and file a complaint. I'll accuse the Marquis's household of deceiving the emperor, swapping the imperial seal, and plotting rebellion. Then forget about marriage, we'll be enemies. Not a single soul in that household will survive. Ronger. Why must it come to this? Amid the standoff, a frail voice echoed from behind. I turned, it was grandmother. She stepped forward, clasped my hand, and repeated, Ronger. Why must it come to this? Gazing at her hands, deeply furrowed with age, I trembled uncontrollably, yet could not bring myself to speak further. Ronger. Why must it come to this? These words, my grandmother had spoken to me when I was 10. Back then, I couldn't endure the lifeless, ashen days. Finally, when mother took Shen Qingran out to burn incense, I seized the chance and fled my room. The Marquis's mansion had deep courtyards and high walls. Unfamiliar with the layout, I wandered for an entire hour without finding the exit. As the searchers drew nearer, I sought out a secluded courtyard and found a peach tree in full bloom. Pulling out my hairpin, I prepared to end it all. The pin hadn't pierced my chest an inch when grandmother seized my hand. She said, "Ronger, why must it come to this?" Before she could finish, tears streamed down my face. At 10 years old, I was utterly exhausted. Endless formalities to learn. Parental affection beyond reach. Spring's bright days forever hidden. Not a single moment passed without me cursing my fate. I asked myself countless times, why? Why must it be me? Born with the phoenix's destiny. Destined to restore the Marquisate. I was so tired. But I didn't want to die either. I just didn't know how to escape. If the servants caught me, they'd only watch me more closely. I never wanted that life again. That day, I clung to grandmother and wept until I passed out. When I awoke, grandmother had kept me in her courtyard. She told mother she'd summoned me over, the nanny was absent, causing the commotion. Life at grandmother's was simple, dim lamps, ancient Buddha statues, and plain meals. Yet I was still happy. There, I could simply be the granddaughter of the Shin family, not the legitimate daughter of the Marquis's household. But grandmother remained the matriarch of the Marquis's estate. Staying with her for a few days each month was already the greatest gift she could give me. They all said this was my fate. Inescapable. But Shin Qingran told me, "Sister, you must leave." I clenched my teeth, gazing at my aged grandmother. Yet not a single soft word escaped me. Grandmother sighed, "Ronger, I know your heart is filled with injustice. You resent your father and mother for disregarding human bonds. Blinded by greed and ambition. No matter what they say, you only hear excuses. I understand your hurt. I don't ask you to heed my words. But walk with me through this courtyard. See for yourself before deciding." Her cloudy eyes brimmed with pleading. My resolve finally softened, and I nodded. I supported grandmother as we walked through the courtyard, now in the full bloom of April's spring. In the afternoon courtyard, the servants had finished their midday meal and gathered in scattered groups. Chatting and joking, young maidservants chased each other beneath the flowering trees. Spotting us approaching from afar, they scattered like startled birds, laughing and scrambling away. Grandmother spoke, "Ronger, do you feel your mother has been lax in managing the household?" I shook my head. There has never been a single instance of theft or disloyalty in the Marquis's household. Nor has there been a whisper of gossip about us outside these walls. Managing a household, like governing a country, requires a balance of firmness and flexibility. Only when the master is benevolent can the servants relax. Grandmother patted my hand. "You've learned well from your nanny, Ronger." I smiled bitterly. These things should have been taught to a daughter by her mother. Hand in hand, as we crossed the courtyard, grandmother led me instead to the ancestral hall. "Ronger, we're not here to enforce family law. I simply wish for you to see your own kin." Stepping inside, the hall was charred black. Ancestral tablets lay scattered haphazardly amidst the ashes. I pressed my lips together, about to speak, when grandmother pulled me to a halt and closed the shrine doors. Her trembling hands lifted a tablet from the altar. She wiped it clean with her sleeve and set it upright. "Ronger, this is your grandfather. He passed away before you and your sister were born. Your great-grandfather was merely a sixth-rank civil official, unable to afford even a two-courtyard residence in the capital. Yet your grandfather went to the military camps himself, fighting tooth and nail to earn the title of Marquis. For himself, and for the Shin family's descendants." As grandmother spoke, she wiped away tears with a smile. Old age makes one fond of reminiscing. "Don't mind grandmother's rambling. Ronger, you've been confined to the courtyard before, rarely seeing your own kin. Today you'll meet them all." The Marquis's household had never been divided. the second and third branches lived within the manor. I'd scarcely met my second uncle and aunt, or third uncle and aunt, for family feasts during the new year. I was never permitted to attend. Among the dozen or so people who emerged, the only familiar faces were Brother Changyuan from the second branch and sister-in-law Tianying from the third. Brother Changyuan looked after me greatly when I was young. When Shen Qingran couldn't leave the mansion, she'd ask him to buy little trinkets for me. But when I turned 13, Brother Changyuan inexplicably became mentally impaired. As for sister-in-law Tianying, she was one of the few who could visit my courtyard. She had always been a model among the noble ladies of the capital. Plus, my governess was her great-aunt, so we were somewhat close. But 8 months ago, my fourth brother drowned. She became a widow, carrying his posthumous child. Brother Changyuan stepped forward, smiling at me. Ronger, do you remember me? His expression was clear, his speech articulate, not a trace of foolishness. I nodded. Sister-in-law Tianying also stepped forward, gently stroking her rounded belly with tender eyes. Ronger, before your fourth brother passed, he asked you to choose a nickname for the child. He said he wasn't very bright himself, so the child needed to absorb some of your brilliance. I pressed my lips together tightly and scanned the room. These unfamiliar faces left me bewildered. What did any of this have to do with me and Shen Qingran? Father stood before me. Ronger, I know you feel wronged, believing the entire Marquis' household sacrificed you alone for glory and profit. But you don't know, I began my studies at 3, mastered the classics by 5, passed the Jinsher exam at 10, yet remained obscure in the capital. All because, the year before I took the autumn imperial examination, your grandfather broke my hand. The following year, your grandfather passed away. He died while hunting, thrown from his horse and trampled to death. A general who once led armies through enemy lines, now perishing from a fall. Why, do you think? The late emperor was deeply suspicious. At that time, your grandfather commanded 500,000 troops at the frontier. I answered as I always did during the matron's examinations, without hesitation. Father nodded, his face bearing a solemnity I had never seen before. What is the current emperor's disposition? In his early years, he governed with diligence, appointed virtuous officials, and ushered in an era of prosperity unseen in a century. But after being wounded during a hunt 15 years ago, he gradually became obsessed with alchemy. He grew increasingly suspicious, allowed factional strife to flourish, and established the Eastern Factory to monitor all officials. Ministers lived in constant fear. Father nodded again. You should have had 3 elder brothers by blood. Yet even if I pretended to be incapacitated, the Marquisate could not have a male heir to inherit the title. All because your grandfather's military prestige still lingers. Ronger, I know you resent this. But consider, your mother suffered 3 miscarriages before bearing you and your sister. Without the Phoenix's decree, you would have perished from a serpent's bite in your cradle. Your elder brother Changyuan feigned madness to survive. Your sister-in-law, Tianying, barely a year into her marriage, was left to live a life of widowhood. Who in this Marquisate has not sacrificed? Who has not been broken? Do you think I do this for glory or profit? This Marquisate, counting the household servants, holds over 500 souls. The Shin clan, 9 generations, over 10,000 people. All we seek is to survive. Thud. In the dim light, someone knelt down. One after another, those unfamiliar faces from the Marquis' household knelt. Father held Mother's hand, lifted his robe, and knelt. I turned to look at Grandmother. She clutched Grandfather's memorial tablet, leaning on her cane, slowly bending her knees until she knelt on the ground. The entire Shin clan begs for mercy. Qingrong, spare our lives. We beg for mercy. Qingrong, spare our lives. The sound of foreheads striking stone slabs made my head spin. The familiar scent of sandalwood filled my nostrils. Where was this? Had returning been merely a dream? I was still consort Roan, who loved wearing purple robes, kneeling in the imperial consort's palace for the third day. The imperial consort practiced Buddhism year-round. Her hall scented only with incense. The vibrant young women who came and went through the palace meant nothing to her, mere playthings. Yet I alone bore the imperial bloodline. After finally disposing of my aunt, now another niece arrived, destined to become the palace's second most honored figure. How could she possibly endure this? Like a puppet, I was bound by threads, twisted and coiled, my forehead forced against the stone slab. Once, twice, and again. The imperial consort's chambers were paved with the finest white jade, flawless and pure as the stone itself. Yet beneath my forehead alone, a crimson patch bloomed, resembling a precious gem brought from distant western lands. My mouth still moved, but my words were indistinct. It seemed like, I remember now. I beg your imperial majesty, spare the Shin family. Spare the Shin family. What did the imperial consort say afterward? I cannot recall. Hanged in the garden. I watched the nettle-wrapped whiplash toward me, inch by inch, turning white to red. But thankfully, the wails of the Shin family that had haunted my dreams night after night were not released. The Shin daughter has succeeded. The Marquis 8 is preserved. Ancestors of the Shin family, Shin Qingrong has fulfilled her filial duty. Sister. The blood-soaked figure dangling before me suddenly raised its head and called out to me. No. My heart lurched, and I stumbled backward, sending another row of spirit tablets crashing to the floor. I snapped back to reality. Before me, over 20 pairs of eyes knelt in a dark mass. Behind me, the spirit tablets of generations of the Shin family. The thread wound itself around me once more. My voice cracked horribly as I spoke. Why must it come to this? Why must you push me to this point? Was this how it ended last time? Must I sacrifice Shin Qingran's life again in this lifetime? Or perhaps they never cared about me and Shin Qingran at all. Grandmother's voice cut like a blade, Ronger. This is your fate. This is the fate of the Marquisade's legitimate daughter. We already lack allies in the palace. We cannot afford to lose General Zhang's military power. What if I refuse this fate? I cried out, choking on my tears. It was the lingering ghosts of my past life, tangled too deeply. That made me naively seek justice. Where in the Shin household could there be justice? Ronger! Grandmother's voice was like blood-curdling cries, for the sake of these 500 souls. General Zhang, you must marry him. Closing my eyes, I laughed bitterly as tears streamed down my face. And Shin Qingran? Did you simply abandon her in the palace? Is this her fate too? Is this also for the sake of the 500 souls of the Marquis' household? By going to replace her. Who among you did I harm? You knew full well she couldn't survive in the palace. Sister-in-law Tianying knelt on the ground, sobbing. This was Shin Qingran's own choice. When she gambled with our lives, she never considered us. She chose this path herself. How could we spare her? I snorted coldly. If Shin Qingran truly cared about their lives, she would have taken me away long ago. Ronger, I beg you, your nephew will be born in a month. Please let him see this world. Sister-in-law, in the next life, I'll be your ox or horse to repay you. To repay Qingran. I clenched my fists, turning my face away from her. Sister-in-law, my nephew's life matters. But Shin Qingran's life doesn't? If you want the Shin family to live, let me enter the palace. Shin Qingran's life, let her claim it herself when she returns. Swapping the imperial seal to plot rebellion, weigh whether the Shin family can bear such a charge. Father spat out a mouthful of blood. Shin Qingrong, do you care so little for blood ties? The imperial family knows no affection, father. You taught me well. The debt of life and nurturing from the Shin family. I repaid with my flesh and blood in my past life. This lifetime, I owe only Shin Qingran. What do your lives matter to me? You wish to live, do you think we wish to die? Qingran and I are but two frail women. How could we possibly bear the weight of the lives of over 10,000 members of the Shin clan? I swept a cold gaze over the crowd before me. There are countless paths in this world. If you cherish your lives so deeply, why not fight for them yourselves? Who among you hasn't enjoyed the blessings of the Shin family? So you're saying the entire household's annual expenditure of 5,000 taels of silver was spent by me and Shin Qingran? Yet you insist on trading the lives of Shin family daughters for your own. Is this scheme not a little too simplistic? I rose and knelt, striking my forehead hard against the ground. Qingrong also pleads here to all uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters-in-law, spare my poor sister Shin Qingran's life. Sister-in-law Tianying collapses, and chaos erupts. Uncles and aunts rise, loudly denouncing me as a heartless, ungrateful wretch. I met their gaze coldly. You send my sister to her death with such fervent zeal. Second uncle lunged to strike me. You unfilial daughter. I'll beat you to death here today to appease our ancestors' spirits. Humph. You old fool. I kicked him sprawling, his mouth full of righteousness. He rolled about disheveled on the ground. Judging by his cries of pain, he must have broken a few ribs. I stood up, unwilling to waste any more time with them, whether they agreed or not. What did it matter? I had my own way of getting into the palace to rescue Shin Qingran. Grandmother blocked the doorway. Ronger. I ask you one last time, are you certain? I nodded firmly. Her face paled. You've always been determined. Go, Ronger. But proceed with utmost caution. One misstep, and you'll face eternal ruin. Do this for you and Qingran. I pushed open the heavy door with resolve, letting light flood in. Before Shin Qingran returns, there will be no second Shin Qingrong in this world. Rest assured. I will leave a home for Qingran. Before I left the estate, Mother rushed after me, pressing a waste token into my hand. This was left by your aunt, Ronger. Though I don't know why you're so certain you can succeed. The palace is a place of great peril. You must be extremely cautious in everything you do. You've seen for yourself that no one in this household is of any use. The rest of the journey rests entirely on your own shoulders. I took the token. Yet her face, so accustomed to privilege, was etched with profound weariness. I tucked back a stray strand of her hair, then turned and left the Marquis's residence. Upon entering the hall of blossoming splendor, Matron Shin sighed almost inaudibly when she saw me. I took her hand. Thank you, Matron, for caring for my sister. Shin Qingran was the most sleep-deprived. This springtime was precisely when she needed her rest most. Nanny Shin dismissed the attending palace maid, and I approached the bedstead with quiet steps. A crimson-purple gown lay there, its solitary shoulder forming a sharp, angular peak. She lay there, like a pile of bones. Before I could sit down, Shin Qingran jolted awake. I looked at the bent golden hairpin in my hand and let out a bitter laugh. This high-purity gold artifact was luxurious enough, but its sharpness and hardness were sorely lacking. Shin Qingran regained her senses, joy flushing her face before instantly fading. Sister, why have you come? I gazed at her face, gaunt from the past few days. Her once rosy cheeks now bore a sickly greenish tint, bare of any makeup. What has happened at home? Seeing her furrowed brow, a wave of bitterness welled up in my heart. Nothing. You must focus on restoring your health. Do not burden yourself with excessive worry, it shortens your lifespan. Shin Qingran's expression faltered. Tears welled in my own eyes. So this was how she felt when she spoke those words to me in my past life. When I first entered the palace, I held no favor. The imperial consort naturally took pleasure in tormenting me. Time and again, I begged for mercy like a dog, only to face even harsher treatment. Finally, in my second year at court, my chance arrived. The old emperor, having consumed too many elixirs, hung by a thread. With the help of a wandering alchemist I found, I forcibly snatched the old emperor back from the underworld. Through the alchemist's elixirs and my increasingly ruthless methods, I became the one whose word was law in the palace. In the years that followed, the Shin family frequently came to the palace to visit me. Each time they came, it was either to secure an official position here or to report another life lost there. With the old emperor no longer attending to state affairs, the Jing family no longer needed to be exiled to the frontier. Shin Qingran and Jing Jingye returned to the capital. She was the most frequent visitor to the palace, often bringing her child with Jing Jingye for me to see. That time, I've forgotten what the occasion was. The old emperor's life was hanging by a thread. The Shin family repeatedly came to the palace urging me to support the crown prince's ascension. Once the crown prince ascended, the Shin clan, having contributed to his rise, would naturally become the most esteemed imperial in-laws. They promised me the position of Empress Dowager, with boundless honor and glory. But I had the crown prince beaten to death with a cane. I sent spy after spy into the palace. My incompetent cousin, just like his father, always believed I was destined by heaven. He wanted the throne, and he wanted me too, to hold me firmly in his grasp. Truthfully, I was merely the pawn the Shin family had prepared for him, promising me the position of Empress Dowager. I suspect he sought to emulate Emperor Gaozong of Tang, Li Ji. When Shin Qingran came to see me in the palace, I had been clearing matters within the palace for several nights without sleep. She handed me a ginseng broth she had simmered all night. I had barely taken a few sips when a palace attendant entered with urgent news. By the time I finished attending to it, the broth had grown cold. My complexion back then must have been far worse than Shin Qingran's is now. The old wounds accumulated since entering the palace. Years of exhausting my heart and strength, my body had long since given out. I knew it myself, yet I refused to accept it. I had endured so many years, I was finally nearing the end of my ordeal. So I pretended not to see, pretended not to know. That's why when Shin Qingran said, "Sister, don't overthink things, it shortens your lifespan," I flew into such a rage. I felt she was mocking me. She had good fortune in everything, needing no scheming, yet she dared say I worried too much. If I hadn't worried, would she and the entire Shin family still be alive? I banished her and forbade her from ever entering the palace again. Only after facing life and death did I realize I was no different from those spineless fools in the Shin family, capable only of turning my blade against those closest to me. From start to finish, I directed all my resentment and hatred toward Shin Qingran, convinced that just because I was born a moment earlier, why should I bear all this? Looking back, that resentment and hatred were precisely what the Shin family wanted to see. If I hadn't blamed Shin Qingran, but instead directed my anger at the entire Shin family, how could they have maintained their favored status? That's why they schemed daily, favoring Shin Qingran above all. The garden was so vast, yet Shin Qingran always played right beneath my window. Why must I witness every rare moment of tenderness between father and her? How foolish I was, blinded by their manipulation. Shin Qingran wiped my tears. "Is it you? Have you returned?" I nodded, clutching her hand, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Just like that night. Shin Qingran stroked my face and whispered in my ear, "Sister, stop crying. You're back. Nothing could be better than this. This lifetime won't be so bitter anymore. You won't have to suffer either. Qingran, I'll take your place and leave. I can handle things in the palace." Shin Qingran shook her head. "Sis, now that I'm here, I won't let you go through this again. No wonder you were so furious that time. This palace truly isn't a place for humans to live. And I thought you were overthinking things, Talk about not knowing what it's like. Sis. Don't worry about the Shin family. Don't worry about me either. I was too foolish. The crown prince discovered me. He threatened me with Jinya's life and yours. I frowned. Does the family know? Shin Qingran nodded, forcing a smile. Sis. I know you can escape. If Jinya doesn't leave, you needn't worry about him either. Sis. Once you escape, don't ever come back this time. After leaving the palace, I headed straight for the crown prince's residence. That good-for-nothing, just like in my past life, craves the throne desperately yet cowers like a weakling, lacking even the courage to act like a proper crown prince. The old emperor is capricious and tyrannical. Had he shown a shred more backbone, someone would likely have rallied behind him. But all he knows is to stir up trouble with the Shin family and intimidate women. He locked himself away in the crown prince's residence day after day, donning theatrical makeup and singing in a high-pitched voice all day long. He called it concealing his talents and feigning simplicity. When I visited the crown prince's residence, I feigned praise and acted the part of a lovesick woman tormented by unrequited love. He gladly accepted the alchemist I presented to him. Just as I was leaving, Father rushed to the crown prince's residence. The crown prince excused himself, leaving me alone with Father. Roner, have you finally come to your senses? It must be Ranran's wisdom that persuaded you to change your mind. I flashed my standard noblewoman smile. Yes. Father, your foresight is profound. So this settling matters for Shin Qingran was merely a joint charade with the crown prince to threaten her? To keep her trapped in the palace, playing my role perfectly, never daring to harbor the slightest rebellious thought or death wish. No wonder Shin Qingran gained favor so swiftly. It was merely to extinguish her last shred of hope. No wonder he vehemently refused to let me swap places with Shin Qingran. And no wonder he insisted on using me to bind Jinya. What a cunning scheme. Truly cunning. I adopted the docile demeanor of my past life. Father, your daughter now knows her wrongdoing. With Qingran entering the palace, this lifetime of mine will likely remain destined to be with Crown Prince brother, yet never united. I only wish to use my years of learning to help Crown Prince brother ascend the throne. Father stroked his beard and chuckled softly. This is the fine daughter of the Shin family. Yes. Very good. You shall see in time. The alchemist was presented by the imperial consort. I told the crown prince, His Majesty is already suspicious. If you present the alchemist, he'll fear you're plotting against him and dare not use him. Only the imperial consort, she has no children. Once His Majesty ascends to the heavens, she'll have no one left to rely on. His Majesty will only trust her, believing her intentions to be pure. The crown prince praised me highly. Truly worthy of the Phoenix Destiny Master, your insight is peerless. Alas. His greedy gaze was as familiar as ever. I feigned sorrow. Sisters serving father and son, the masses won't discern the truth. Only attacking Crown Prince brother. Once Crown Prince brother ascends the throne, standing above all, no one will dare speak against him. The Crown Prince grew ever more elated, while the imperial consort grew impatient. The old emperor soon fell ill. The imperial consort sought every means to prolong his life, while the crown prince knelt in prayer for 3 days at Xinyuan Temple. Finally, the old emperor recovered. Overjoyed, he held a grand banquet in the palace. Dressed in my finest, I stood beside Shin Qingran. As cups clinked and toasts flowed, I glanced at father and the crown prince, both radiant with triumph. Seated beside the old emperor, the imperial consort basked in triumph. Shin Qingran nudged me, pretending to pour wine. I crouched down, and a pastry slipped into my hand. Sis, why must you pretend to be a palace maid? No food, no drink, and forced to stand, it's exhausting. Ever since I used the pretext of entering the palace to orchestrate events, having the Shin family personally deliver me to Shin Qingran's side, She's grown much happier each day, even though she constantly complains that she doesn't appreciate my efforts. I cleared my throat softly, reminding Shin Qingran that with so many people around, we mustn't give ourselves away. She grumbled about having studied for over 50 years yet only grasping the surface. Then straightened her posture, watching the imperial consort feed a spoonful of soup to the old emperor. I signaled to the crown prince, ready. The old emperor coughed up a mouthful of blood, sending the ministers into panic. The crown prince rushed forward, wailing and wringing his hands, then ordered the imperial consort arrested. Father watched the crown prince take command, finally satisfied. He feigned panic and retreated with the ministers. TSK. How clumsy. I watched the crown prince ascend the dragon throne, then kicked the old emperor off with a fierce stomp. The imperial consort lay pinned to the ground, her hairpins scattered. Her expression was frenzied. Xiao Ruilin. How dare you deceive me? How dare you address me by name? The imperial consort's face swelled from the blows. I held Shin Qingran's trembling hand and soothed her. Don't be afraid. I stepped forward, summoned a guard, and ordered him to stomp on the imperial consort's face. Her makeup was too thick. I didn't want to dirty my shoes. Which hand did the imperial consort use to strike consort Rong? The imperial consort struggled, unable to speak. I feigned indecision and looked toward the crown prince. He ground his foot over those pale, bare hands. If she can't speak, then chop off both. The chamber was soon cleared. Father was escorted back by the crown prince's personal guards. The moment he arrived, his face lit up with a smile. Your Majesty. This humble servant congratulates the crown prince. No. He corrected. Congratulates the emperor. I stood by, smiling as I watched the two of them. Shin Qingran, however, was deeply unsettled. She whispered to me, Sister, isn't this treason? Are we plotting rebellion? I shook my head. The crown prince noticed our exchange and turned his gaze toward us. The Shin sisters, indeed, are stunningly beautiful. Marquis Shin, I have a request. Your Majesty, speak freely. This phoenix consort's destiny is to wed a true dragon emperor. Would you not agree? Father's smile deepened, naturally. I have another request. One I trust Marquis Shin will also grant. The power of the imperial in-laws must be guarded against. I am certain Marquis Shin understands my predicament. Would you be willing to sacrifice yourself for the nation? The crown prince drew his sword and thrust it through his father's chest. The smile of impending triumph froze on his father's face. Coughing up blood, he crawled step by step toward me and Shin Qingran, grabbing my leg. Rong. Save your father. I was utterly bewildered, Marquis Shin. For the sake of the Shin family's legacy, for the sake of the 500 souls of the Shin household, what is wrong with sacrificing your life? The revival of the Shin clan rests entirely upon your shoulders. Why refuse to accept your fate and die willingly? Father. I was wrong. Father knows he was wrong. Ranner. My dear daughter, save your father. Shin Qingran's face twisted with reluctance. Yet she took a resolute step toward me. I flung away that bloodied hand. Marquis Shin, you don't know you were wrong, you know you're afraid. For the sake of the Shin family legacy, depart in peace. The crown prince clapped his hands and roared with laughter beside us, truly worthy of being my empress, deeply understanding of the greater good. As he approached to wrap his arm around my waist, I twisted his wrist backward and flung him backward. My father must not have mentioned to the crown prince that I possess some basic martial arts skills. Gritting his teeth, the crown prince struggled to rise from the ground. I delivered another kick, sending him tumbling backward. This blow struck his chest, leaving him unable to get up for a long while. I picked up the long sword that had fallen nearby and walked toward him step by step. His entire body trembled as he scrambled backward in panic. No, cousin. What do you want? I'll agree to anything. Anything at all. I tilted my head at him. Is that so? Then kowtow 3 times to Ching Ran. The crown prince began banging his forehead on the ground with a thud thud thud. He looked up at me. Cousin. Cousin. Please spare me. I continued advancing with my sword raised. Just kidding. With a flick of my sword, the crown prince's hairpin snapped, sending his hair flying as he scrambled away. Scaring people is so much fun. Cousin. The crown prince's teeth chattered. No. No. Cousin. It's not fun. He crawled while shouting, Guards. Guards. Protect me. The clang of blades against armor echoed, and the crown prince breathed a sigh of relief. You audacious fool. I shall have you beheaded. No. No. Quartered. I shall have you quartered. Oh. Cousin. I'm so scared. Terrified. I laughed and swung my sword again. The crown prince retreated swiftly but collided with something. Overjoyed, he shouted, Guards! Guards! Seize her! I never knew, when did my dear crown prince ascend the throne? The crown prince looked up. It was the old emperor. His eyes closed. And he fainted. A pool of yellow fluid spreading beneath him. I took Shinchingran's hand. I told you, we never plotted rebellion. Father was still panting nearby. The crown prince's sword had struck wildly off target. I ordered men to carry father away. His time had not yet come. If we speak of pure motives, who could rival mine? They craved fame. They craved profit. They craved the most exalted position in this world. But I only wanted Shinchingran to live. For the old emperor, this was the most advantageous bargain imaginable. By letting me vent my rage, he could execute the crown prince, depose the imperial consort, and intimidate the court. This empire is his empire. He'd long grown weary of those shadowy schemes, instructing him to act, plotting his demise. As for the Phoenix Mistress title, he scoffed. Does a woman's noble destiny alone grant her power over the realm? He despised women profoundly. Yet I found his logic sound. In ancestral halls, men are enshrined. In marketplaces, men count the silver. In the court, men play their power games. Where then are the women? In brothels. In inner quarters. In kitchens. And yet they say women can sway the rise and fall of empires? Highborn ladies. The unfortunate ones, like me, like Shinchingran, are carved into standardized molds, sent into secluded mansions, into the depths of the palace, to secure a share of glory. Those men, they lie upon the bones of women, weaving the burdens and lies of family glory. They say this is fate, but I say this is weakness. Father was sent back to the Marquis's residence with only a simple bandage. The imperial physician had examined him. The sword wound ran deep, yet spared vital organs. Summoning a renowned doctor would pose no hardship for the Marquis's household. Yet, the Marquis's household dared not. The palace had been thrown into turmoil, the crown prince deposed, the imperial consort dead, the old emperor, who had coughed up blood before all, seated once more upon the throne. Everyone kept their lips sealed. Yet there was father, gravely wounded, carried back by the imperial guard. No imperial decree arrived. Not even a verbal message delivered by a eunuch. Those days, even dogs avoided the Marquis's residence. Throughout the manor, many knew of the crown prince's schemes. Everyone lived in constant fear. After 4 or 5 days, a rolled-up straw mat was tossed out the rear gate of the Marquis's residence. Inside lay a disheveled, filthy wounded man. With the weather warming, a thick layer of maggots had bred on his body. It seemed the Marquis's family had ultimately chosen to uphold their ancestral legacy. The day Shinchingran left for the frontier, my tavern opened its doors. Sis. The restaurant could have opened at the frontier too. Why did you insist on staying? The capital's splendor, how could the frontier compare? I'm the one destined to open the finest restaurant under heaven. I chuckled and tickled her nose. I slipped up in front of the old emperor. How could he possibly trust me to leave? But Shin Qingran didn't need to know any of this. For the first time, I realized the Marquis's household had raised her to be innocent and carefree, and that was a blessing. All right. Then you must write to me often. Don't ignore me like you did in my past life. I smiled in agreement and helped her mount her horse. I walked over to Xing Jingye and flexed my fist. Treat Qingran well. Or else. You know what happens. Rest assured. Sister. Seeing Shin Qingran wasn't looking this way, he added, should I leave some of my personal guards with sister? Rest assured. It's fine. Just take good care of Qingran. With galloping hooves, they vanished in a cloud of dust. Watching the receding figures, I smiled contentedly and turned toward the capital. The timing is perfect, I must not let it go to waste. This life Shin Qingran fought for me. I shall not squander a single moment. The light boat has passed 10,000 mountains. The end.